That's
well, let's just say I'm saber rattling. And you're like, oh shit, okay, I'm going to get my shit together. I'm gonna get my systems right, or whatever it is. I'm not making just a play for a summit or our mastermind or whatever, but something. You join another group and you say, okay, this could be the year. And you get everything refined, you get your vision straightened out, your practice is thriving, and it doesn't melt down the economy. What have I done? What poor service have we delivered for somebody? It's just a call to get like with the health monitor I'm doing right now. I had that, I probably told you both. I had my hemoglobin A1C elevated a little bit. It doesn't mean shit, but left unchecked for 5 years, I'd probably have diabetes, and it's a wake up call. I think the same thing, like we was talking about, you have to be your own advocate for your healthcare. You have to be your own advocate for your finances, and your own advocate and your own person in charge for your business.
100%.
And this is the call. This is the midlife crisis for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're making a call to get your shit done.
Yeah. I think the call is not so much just, hey, well, just throw in the towel and surrender. I think it's
one of the choices. Type of tortilla.
I just showed up at Flash and they had a bunch of fajitas here, and
it's such a Texan thing.
Just grab a tortilla and go.
Well, I'm pretending I'm eating healthy for the last 2 weeks. So
yeah, tortillas is not the way.
No, you're identifying.
I had a breakdown last night of this is fucking ridiculous. I'd rather be fat and happy. And
oh my god.
So this morning I woke up and I had a real nice lunch, and then had a tortilla just as a reward.
Hey, listen, we love you just the way you are, Trey. But
that's why I love you guys.
Speaking of that, the last pod you were on was fire. I was so proud. I think it was probably great because I was off. I think I suck up all the oxygen, and Trey gets a chance to finally speak. Can you speak on this one?
I'm gonna try to speak on this one. I don't know.
Not just about tortillas, but add your knowledge.
But I got a lot of knowledge on tortillas.
Well, let's segue into something, Peter. Where are you taking this? Where are you steering this?
Taking this into serious business land.
Let's do it.
But first, you know what I got to do.
Play it.
Everyone's got to do a little. Trey, let me see it. All right. By the way, Craig's working on a new intro, which is going to be fire.
That's going to be awesome.
Is that because he doesn't like yours?
So here's the deal.
I don't really like. Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up.
I'm gathering. Yeah,
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Okay.
I'm not feeling it. It was good for when it was. We need a new intro.
Now we're ready for change.
So here we are today, Tuesday, March 14th, right?
Beware the Ides of March.
We're in a weird world right now. If you're not paranoid right now, you're probably a fool. Let me tell you why. This is not tin hat shit, Trey. I hear you laughing. But we're not going to be able to stop interest rate hikes. Banks are failing left and right.
Oh, listen to this fear mongering. I like it. I like where you're going.
We got a World War III proxy war going on.
Oh,
people are turning into becoming flat broke. Facebook's firing, or you're just being fired. Bitcoin is climbing at about $1,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Chat GPT 4 was just released today, which is almost like comparing Chat GPT 3 and 4 to being Earth and the sun. Earth and the sun. No, I mean, right? So if you're not just a tad bit paranoid about like all the movements going on right now, you should be.
I'm a fool because I'm not so paranoid right now, but I did buy some Bitcoin, bud.
Which would mean that would be micro paranoia for you, since
microaggression.
He's dipping back in.
I dipped the whistle.
Yeah.
So here's the good news, though. Inflation has fallen to 6%.
Silver lining? Is that the silver lining?
No. Here's the problem, though. So the data is still telling, the Fed is still telling, the data of inflation data is still telling the Fed it needs to continue raising because 6 is still too high, even though it's going down. But all these banking crises that are going on have kind of had the Fed conflicted, and what they might have to do is decrease interest rates and print money again, which the money printer gets turned back on, right? The burr money printer gets turned back on. Also, Moody's just cut, Moody's does all the rankings on companies and stuff.
That's all bullshit.
They but they cut their outlook from the U.S. banking system from stable to negative.
No.
Yes, citing a quote unquote rapidly deteriorating operating environment.
I didn't know that.
So
I didn't know that either. When did that happen, Pete?
Just today.
Was this on Tinfoil News Network?
Yep. Tinfoil.com is I am a gold subscriber.
Are you sponsored by Reynolds by any chance? Is that where we're going?
All right. Look, it is.
No. I hear you. But that's alarming. That is actually alarming.
Look, it's. Yes, I know this is a dental podcast. Yes, I know we are not of the financial acumen as the All In Pod or CNBC or something like that, but we are. I think it's important for us to bring awareness to that. And if you had your head in the sand, you didn't know about this Silicon Valley Bank. Trey, did you know about this?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. So like the good old fashioned bank run just happened and it exposed the current debt marketing, the current debt. What am I trying to say?
Well, the leverage that banks use on your deposits.
Yeah, the debt-based monetary system, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is
listen,
to be a house of cards.
One of the things that I always say about you, and I love most about you, is that you're always really far ahead. So when you were talking Bitcoin 2019, 2018, I know by the time you brought it to me, it was that time, you were saying that you remembered this story right around COVID. Actually, it was March of 2020 when this story hit you, when you wanted to withdraw. You called me. I don't know, Trey, you were someone was on it. Maybe it's Dwight. I don't remember, but it was the three of us talking. And it was this idea that do you haven't gone to the supermarket yet? You got to get you got to store up on some anti-fever, some Tylenol, Advil, and make sure you get some toilet paper. Things are gonna get real. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? And I'm like, so I went to the supermarket, and then you were telling me earlier that day you went to your bank, and I want to pull out $20,000. Like, we don't have your money, and it sets you off down this rabbit hole of like, what do you mean you don't have my money? This is the bank, and you had this real understanding at that point after the research that you put this money in the bank, and then the bank takes it and makes investments with it, and it was a very big shift for you. And I remember
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's what fueled your initial positivity into crypto and to Bitcoin specifically, because you're like, well, if the money's not here and money can just be made up and blah 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 blah. And one of the reasons why I got out of Bitcoin, and I just want to say this, and I got back in 2 days ago, is because I always said, like, at a certain point, if you have enough cash, you can deploy it and put into great assets. But then when you see what happened at SVB, and there were depositors at risk of losing their money, it's like, it doesn't seem like Bitcoin is so suspect, because at least, and I even texted you, I'm like, I'm back in. You're like, yeah, be your own bank. You wrote, be your own bank.
Right.
And it was just,
so,
I don't
know.
So
to clarify a few things on that story, because you're right, but the timelines are a little bit skewed. That didn't like give me conviction into the space of crypto. Right. It was just another data point that I was saying, holy shit, what a house of cards. So yes, you're right. Maybe I'm a little early to things because I was calling it kind of a house of cards back then because it wigged me out.
Yeah, it gave you the feeling that you had made a good choice, though.
Well, kind of, yes, Trey. Or I just thought that maybe I was just the only paranoid one, right? Which is kind of quote unquote being the early, like Craig always says.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting exercise in that, and I kind of dug into that. And so to go to the bank, and let's just say you have, I had 5 times the amount of money that I was asking that I had deposited there, gave them that in good faith, right? In my ideas, it was as safe as under my mattress, right? And so I'm assuming, my dumbass is assuming it's sitting there in the vault behind them. So I'm just wanting to ask for it. And to Craig's point, no, that money has been, not only is it not there, but it's being lent out and has been bought with either treasury bills or given out as loans and has been rehypothecated 10, 20 times over. So
lending,
that's the fractional. And so that's
remember Greece.
Remember what? Greece. Yeah, I remember Greece.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, exactly. So everyone around that time, when everyone started thinking about that, and you started hearing, I think it's Nancy Pelosi said, there's a soundbite of her saying, well, we can just take everybody's retirement, their 401ks.
Yeah.
And you had all this, and everyone's like, that's bullshit. That can't happen. And then Greece happens, and you start having that whole mindset of, oh shit, none of this is, this is trust. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well, look, there's a
it's
thing.
consensus. It's
There's a
consensus,
thing in
consensus
crypto.
and trust.
There is a phrase in crypto that is pervasive in the industry. Not your key, and you guys have probably even heard this. Not your keys, not your crypto, right? Which essentially means you are not. If you are not the custodian of your money, of your funds, then you are victim to things like the Celsius and the Luna crisis and the Voyager, where there has been failures in these crypto quote unquote banks. And if you don't have the keys, you're not the custodian. Same thing is actually the case with SVB. And now looking at your terms and services for your bank, I guarantee you that yes, you are FDIC insured for up to $250,000, but you are not the custodian of those funds any longer, right? And so what's interesting about this is, and I'm not trying, this was not intended to be a crypto versus banking, because I don't, like Craig, like I said before we hit record, I am not rooting for banking to fail and crypto to win, right? I don't think one has to lose for the other one to win. I think they both can prosper and do well, right? I think they can both live in an abundant parallel world. It's just, in actuality, no bank can pay back all its depositors at once. And I think that's freaking weird, right? So banking is just a confidence game. And you have to just assume that not everyone's going to do a bank run on purpose. And that's what happened with SVB, right? I mean, if you don't know the story, I mean, basically it was contagion that happened on rumor. And then basically that because it was such a big funded VC bank, venture capital bank, some of those venture capital people were telling some of their primary companies that they had invested in, hey, go get all your money out because this bank's about to fail. And then it just turned into a free-for-all. And the fact that, like, honestly, they were stuck in long-term, SVB was stuck in long-term yielding
Treasury bonds.
Exactly.
Which is crazy that they bought them at 2% and 3%. Like, we were doing the opposite. We were borrowing money for as long as we could. They're locking it up for as long as they could at that same rate. Like, how irresponsible.
So this is the irony.
It's crazy.
The banks were failing because they bought treasuries, which is a full stop, should be the safest asset in the world to buy, right? And they're failing.
No, it's access to your money. It's locked for 10 years.
Right. You would assume that a United States treasury would be the safest asset in the world.
Right, but we put our money in the bank because we need access to it. In other words, if we have a longer timeline, we invest it. If we're not sure what to invest, we hold it in the bank for the need that we need immediate liquidity. We need liquidity. And then the bank turns around and locks it away.
Right.
You know what I mean? And let's
talk.
But
look, we've had this warm fuzzy though, Craig, right? The FDIC, and you and I had a conversation yesterday as I was leaving the gym, and you're like, look, I've got way more, I feel exposed now because my aggregate amount is way higher than the FDIC insured amount that I have in the account. Right. And so it's this paradigm shift. It's all of a sudden you think it's, oh my gosh, everything is so safe and neat and tidy. And it's just like being under my mattress. But now you felt like vulnerable. Like, what do I do? Do I have to diversify into 10 accounts or whatever?
It's so dumb. So the FDIC will cover you for $2.5 million if you have 10 accounts, each at $250. But if it all happens to be in one institution, you're fucked. I mean, that makes no sense. It's like wearing a mask to go in a restaurant, and sitting down, taking it off, like that rule. Remember that one?
Trey, do you know how much, just you don't need to know this, but could you take a guess on how much the FDIC has in its treasury to back up this amount?
Oh, I have no idea. I wouldn't even know to guess.
All right. Pete knows.
Well, it's just interesting because it's not common knowledge until you dig in. I only know because I got interested, Craig, right? I know you're trying to poke that, like, I'm asking.
No, we talked about it yesterday. It's cool.
Yeah. And so basically in the banking system, what's insured, Trey, is about $22 trillion worth of quote unquote insured accounts. Okay.
According to
my account,
current FDIC regulation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. According to the ones that would apply.
Yeah.
In the treasury account for that insurance policy, essentially, there's $225 billion. So a magnitude of difference of 22 trillion versus 222 billion, which is 1%, right?
So they have 1% of the deposits are insured. 99% of money in deposits in banks is not insured.
That's why this was so important that the government came in and did a backstop on this SVB, because if they hadn't, it would have caused contagion, and every regional bank every non-SIB, which is SIBs, is a systematic important bank, right? There's only 4 in the U.S. Bank of America, Wells Fargo. I don't even know the other 2, but those we have like 4 really systematic important banks. And basically what they were saying was, unless you do a backstop, the only 4 that are safe are those. So people are going to basically take all their money out of regional banks and local banks and put them in the 4 SIBs if they hadn't done the backstop, which they did do the backstop, and it's kind of stopped the contagion. But as you guys saw, I don't know if you looked at at stock quotes yesterday, banking stocks just got beat up yesterday. Yeah. So
Bank of America is actually up today, which is interesting. But I guess
it's reflex, right? Meaning the reflex yesterday was, people panic and they oversell, right? So anyway, I don't want this to be something about banking, because I feel like we get into economics a lot, or ChatGPT, but it has been relevant enough. I think there's enough weird scenarios going on that, it's like I always say, guys, to people, even in our mastermind a lot, like, it's just really important that we pick our head up out of the sand, get out of dentistry for a second, look at the macro around you so that you can plan and pivot for things that may come down the way. And I just think that's so important as a business owner.
That begs the next question. How do you plan? That's a great question. I'm going to keep X amount of dollars under my mattress just in case.
No. Yeah.
And all the way up to, I'm going to divide it up into 10 banks, or however many banks you need to put whatever your dollar amount you're keeping in as cash deposits in separate banks.
That's a great question. And honestly, we got chastised for that, Craig and I, before, this was maybe a year and a half ago, when we were talking about the inverted yield, and someone was saying, like, okay, cool. Like, you're bringing up this information. They were crushing us. They said, you bring up this information, but like, what the fuck do we do? Right? Like, don't just tell a problem, give a solution. And sometimes it can't always be a solution. Like, do these 3 things. I'm going to lay your stake in the sand and say, do that, because honestly, these are people's lives at stakes, right? Meaning that if you give bad intel, right? I am not an expert in this. I think it's just wise to have 3 intelligent people that are in the same concentration of an industry, i.e. dentistry, talk about these variables so that maybe there is a solution. Maybe it opens up an idea for someone. And Trey, maybe it is diversify into many accounts. I don't know. That seems super clunky to me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I would rather be clunky than lost.
Well, and yeah, there's that.
I don't think that. I think that, like to your point, Peter, earlier, that I don't believe that we're at the precipice of the banking system falling apart. We have very loose monetary policy. I mean, the amount of money that's being sent to, for that proxy war in Ukraine could remedy this. We're starting to feel this is the hangover of the boom time. Like, the reason why the SBB thing, one of the reasons why it got compounded, was because you can have all these tech startups that literally have no profit, and they're just burning cash and hiring people and cappuccino machines in every corner, like the Twitter headquarters. And those companies were valued at astronomical market values, and the market is cooled. The banking system didn't react. I mean, what Elon did with Twitter was, I mean, you saw the TikToks of the Twitter employees' day, where they walked in, like, the first thing I do is I make myself an avocado toast, and then I go to the rooftop, and then I have I mean, this is real. They were really saying that.
Right.
And then Elon's like, what the fuck do you do here? You don't do anything. You're a blogger. You're fired. And then all the boards of every tech company were like, hey, do what Elon did. And Mike Benioff from Salesforce did the same thing. People moved in those more austere measures to create profit and focus on profit. Mark Benioff actually said the number one thing we're going to focus on is profit. So as you bring it to dentistry, because I want to land it in dentistry, when we are very closely tied to discretionary spending of the U.S. consumer. And I know we talked about this before, and you both said we're in the recession. You both were very, all 3 said we're in the recession. And I think from the nuanced perspective of the definition of recession, yes, we are. But I want to go back to what I said. I said that I don't think the consumer feels the pain yet. And then this is the next level of that pain. This is where the fill it, don't crown it. I think this is the beginning of that. And it's important for us because we all have a hiring problem. We can't find people. The tendency is, as unemployment rises, we're going to want to hire 5 assistants and 7 assistants and be gluttonous on our employment because we're expecting it to rocket up. But I just think this is just another reminder that your money isn't just safe. You should look at assets instead of just cash. And there could be a significant rattle in consumer confidence, which will affect our cash registers. And a healthy dose of paranoia, if this is all wrong, if we're just paranoid and like, oh shit, I didn't need to do that.
Let me summarize what you said, Greg, just the way I heard it. Basically, you're saying now is that if ever there was a time to be lean and mean, it is now.
Right.
But not to the point of being anemic with where you are, because we're just not in that crisis mode. Trey, go ahead. You're about to say something.
So that's a good summary, and it goes back. We said this on a number of pods back, but that's a good summary, and it leads to the fact of how you should behave 100% of the time. Of you have a model, you stick to your model, and you run that machine the same way all the time. Right. And when there's excess. Yes.
Bull market or bear market, you're saying.
When there's excess, good for you. You can use it to expand. You can draw it, take it as distributions. You can put it to work in other industries. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. But the model itself, what's generating your cash in dentistry, is going to continue to generate that cash. And if you're always running lean, then you should be able to survive the downtimes no matter what. And then the boom times, it's just going to distribute more. So stick with what you know works, as opposed to always reacting to environments.
Do you guys know? So I know we've talked about kind of KPIs a lot, and I don't know if we've talked about them here or maybe it's been in Mastermind a lot recently. And I know we spoke about it some, Trey, when in the to sell or not to sell pod.
Yeah.
One thing that has been interesting to look at, and this is something that like more tech companies do and more other industries do from a KPI perspective. And I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm gonna pull it back. Is you look at either revenues per employee or EBITDA per employee per year. Okay.
Which would actually equate, by the way, Peter, to percentage of gross for employment costs.
Well, it'll give you a basis, right? For if you have $1 million practice and let's call it maybe a $10 million practice and 49 employees, right? You're looking at about a $200,000 per employee per revenue scenario.
Right.
And so where I'm going with that is it's just another way to kind of look at data to say, am I lean and mean, right? Where was I? Chart that over time. When have I been the most efficient? And maybe that's my gold standard, because your gold standard, Trey, for revenues per employee may be quite different than Craig's, right? And it may be all different, but look for the sustainable number. And so I'm actually going to start tracking that, not because I think that that's a great dental number, but it's another data point in this unknown territory that I think we're entering, where no one really knows what's happening, right? I gave you that. The interest rates are going crazy. Are they going to start pumping money back in? Are they going to start pulling money in? What's going to happen? Like, no one knows.
Well, right? I think we can speak to some higher degree, more than just speculation, that interest rates will not now rise because they're worried about, so what was it? Goldman Sachs just said that the interest rate that was expected to be hiked for March will not.
Correct.
So that they're not sticking with the plan. The plan is to like stop this market, and it's not going to be stopped. So inflation therefore will continue to advance or not be cooled.
It has been said, Craig, that the backstop, not just on the SVB, but the backstop on all of the equities that are all of the treasuries that are underwater is on the order of about $2 trillion.
Wonderful.
So think about that. Right?
I think this is bad news for Zelensky. He might not get all he wishes now.
Well, maybe
because we literally have given him a blank check to that government, like with no end in sight. It's been intimated by, our Treasury Yellen went over there. So I think that this monetary policy of blank checks to everything leads itself to the printing press just going on, and whatever we thought happened in the last 3 years, I believe it's going to accelerate over the next 3.
That's what I'm saying. That look what the stimulus did during COVID, right? We went on this crazy bull market and then crazy inflation, right? And so if the same thing happens because of this banking crisis, We're going to have the same injection of money. Yes, the money's going to start at the top, but it's going to flow its way down. And then inflation is going to be on a tear again. It's coming back to decimate people. If that scenario happens, right? Lower middle class will come back and be decimated.
Trey, where are you at with Bitcoin? Are you feeling
the chickens are always going to come home to roost?
What does that mean?
That's the Texan. I like that.
That's right.
That's one of those sayings, by the way, that just Texans just say, and that just you can't rope two cattle at once. And then you just have to, I can't ask what that is.
Yeah. Good point. Oh yeah, two chickens.
We're going to pay the price eventually for all the actions that are being made. You dump a bunch of money in, you turn on the printing press, you can do it, but there's always a reaction. There's always an increase in interest rates. Somebody's going to get hurt somewhere, but we always right the wrong. So when we cause these issues, we fix these issues. It's a balance that always tends back to the medium if we pull the right levers, which we may do quickly and we may do slowly, and we may pull the wrong one, but then we pull the other one later. But the other issue that it's like taxes almost, where you keep, the train never arrives. You keep wanting it to push into the future, and we'll kick that can down the road, hoping that something changes in the interim that allows us to win. And the problem is like this: something changed in the interim. Interest rates going up with locked up, fractionally lended money in banks at a low interest rate where they can't dump it and get the liquidity back out. But we right the wrong, and this is the optimist in me speaking.
Yeah, you're saying that, look, nature heals. Right?
I don't think people.
The U.S. government's going to heal from this. I mean, the U.S. banking system is going to heal. Everything's going to be fine, and I completely agree with you. I think.
But you have to make good decisions in the meanwhile.
Yeah, but Trey, let me play devil's advocate, because I feel like that's my job on this pod. Sometimes, kidding, but I am the tin hat guy, kind of like. Oh, yeah, right. You're right. I'm not.
All right, go ahead.
There is a point in which something stops becoming resilient, though. Right?
That's true.
No matter of the world dominance, right? There's a point you can only stretch something too far before it breaks. And I'm not saying we're there, but everyone treats our economy, everyone treats the US dollar as that it's will always be this way, and you can do whatever you want to it and print as much as you want of it and blah blah blah, because we have the greatest military in the world and that's what backs up our money and blah blah blah. At some point, though, the resilience stops and the rubber band snaps, right? I mean, it just has to in a system. And so I get nervous when people talk about it in a cavalier sense, like, oh, it'll all be fine no matter what we do. And I don't think that's the case. I agree with that too.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's when you're cavalier about it in that sense, and they're not thinking through in a process. I agree. But
well, I mean, look at America was the dominant power for a really long time, and like every dominant player in any type of system, new players come up and dominant players weaken. And I think we can all agree that on the trajectory, I mean, most Americans, regardless of political affiliation, agree that America is on the wrong track. So how the country goes, so does the currency as well. I think as well, but this is
going back to Trey, what Trey was saying, like, what is the action from this, right? Lean and means, we established that. I think that's good. I gave some KPIs just to kind of get people interested in tracking where they are, where they've come from, where they want to go, and stuff like that. Also, getting down to your P&Ls, which is just such basic ass information that the three of us know about and look at, but like so many people just don't look at that, so they don't even know how they're trending over time. And I'm not trying to bring this into boring talk, but Craig, you and I spoke during COVID many, many times about, holy shit, we have almost a zero interest rate policy. Go buy assets right now, because it is an arbitrage, right? Go buy properties, go buy things, expand, right? Because it's free money essentially right now.
Well, refinance your loans.
Your loans, exactly. And so sometimes we do give good advice, but as I follow people who who've made a career of this, everyone seems to be a little bit shaken, meaning they don't really know what's next because there are so many parameters in the air. But
I would just, before you move on to another topic, so let's talk to the people that are listening to this right now, that over the last 2-3 years, they're not doing well. despite the rising tide that's helped float a lot of people. So the last 2 years have been very their practices are contracting. When you have to take some inventory, that if you're to take some look at your practice and look at where it's going. If you're not doing well now, it's going to get a lot harder for you. There's
You
a lot
don't
of
know
people.
that. You don't know.
There's a lot of people that were doing really well and think they're amazing because they were supported by great economies. And there will be a day of reckoning when
Wait. You're saying there's a dislocation between people thought they were doing well when actually it was the economy that was floating them?
Precisely. So some people think they're amazing, and it was a
Right.
good when
And they
the
were riding
economy
the
is
wave.
good. When the economy is good, we think we're geniuses, and when the
Mhm.
economy is bad, it's the economy's fault. So there's some sort of selection bias.
Got it. Okay.
We conflate our results with just and all I'm saying is that for those that have had a very difficult time, not because of a personal reason, but the business is not working well. Patients aren't showing up. They're not doing treatment. They're not enrolling. You have poor systems. It's not going well. You either need to, this is a wake up call to get your systems refined aggressively, or consider maybe tapping out. Because I think like if you can't
Jesus, what are you saying to me?
I believe that. I believe that.
That's
I believe that.
doomsday.
Well, no,
Golly.
I just think
But
there's a lot of
what do you mean by tap out?
well,
Yeah.
okay, so let me tell you what I'm really saying. If you have a sloppy business operation and it has not been thriving at all. So whether that's new patients, your team culture, your systems are not on point, and you've barely weathered the last 2 years. When the economy cools, and I think we're all agreeing that these factors point to a cooling economy, it's going to get acute for you. So you could use that pain of getting close to the fire to say, oh shit, I'm going to go to the Bulletproof Summit. I'm going to hire this coach. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to learn stuff that I never wanted to learn before because it never felt like it was that pressing. Or tap out, meaning like just look at your options. Merge with another doctor. Is there an entrepreneurial doctor in your area? Are you the entrepreneur and your friend is the one that's struggling? There's a way to join forces, either not with the DSO or some force of that you could work with to help you. And I think that's coming. I think it's important to know that. It's like if you were taking on water and you weren't in a storm, you can take on a lot more water when the storm is coming. And I don't think that's doomsday. Worst case scenario.
I think that's sound advice, Greg. I do.
Well,
it's not one I want to hear, and it's not one that I want people to kind of. That's
well. Let's just say I'm saber rattling, and you're like,
Okay.
oh shit, okay, I'm going to get my shit together. I'm gonna get my systems right, or whatever it is. I'm not making just a play for a summit or our mastermind or whatever, but something. You join another group and you say, okay, this could be the year, and you get everything refined. You get your vision straightened out. Your practice is thriving, and it doesn't melt down the economy. What have I done? What poor service have we delivered for somebody? It's just a call to get like with the health monitor I'm doing right now. I had that, I probably told you both. I had my hemoglobin A1C elevated a little bit. It doesn't mean shit, but left unchecked for 5 years, I'd probably have diabetes, and it's a wake up call. I think the same thing, like we was talking about, you have to be your own advocate for your healthcare. You have to be your own advocate for your finances, and your own advocate and your own person in charge for your business.
100%.
And this is the call. This is the midlife crisis for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're making a call to get your shit done.
Yeah. I think the call is not so much just, hey, well, just throw in the towel and surrender. I think it's
one of the choices.
Okay.
If you're not willing to do the work,
it's way down the line, in my opinion, bud. I think it's way down. And I'm not saying it's not there. It is the parachute that is there to maybe save you. But so many people will exercise that prematurely, right? If they hear you say that. And I think there's so many things along the way that you can look in the mirror and say, you know what? My practice sucks at this, this, and this. And I suck at this, and this sucks, and just really be crystal clear and authentic, as opposed to being like, no, everything's awesome, right?
Yeah,
Just get
it's awareness.
Awareness.
It's have good self-awareness of where you actually stand, reflect on your abilities, and then make choices accordingly. And get your shit
and a
done.
lot of people are not willing to do the work.
No, a lot of people are
the reason why there's so many drugs that are written by doctors is because people are not willing to do the preventative exercise, diet change, blah, blah, blah. So they get the pill instead. And I'm just saying,
I think it's ignorance is bliss. Honestly,
I know,
think
but this is. I think we can all agree that it was easier in many ways to be successful over the last economic cycle than maybe the next one. It could be harder for you.
This is a good, I mean, this encapsulates that. I was told this, and I spit this out to everyone in my organization, but the difference between people that are here and people that are here, these people know what to do and get it done. These people know what to do. They just don't do it.
Right.
And there's a big gap.
That's
And
exactly
that
what I'm
goes to
saying.
everything, your health, your business, your finances,
Yeah.
everything that you have to take stewardship over. That's a good point. And it's time to get it done. You're right.
Yeah, I happen to practice like in my building. It is such an interesting social experiment to see different people, same organization, same walls, such different results. And the ones that are getting different results are actually doing the work. And for those that are listening and not watching, Trey was pointing to the people that are high know what to do and do it, and the people that are low know what to do and don't do it. And that's all I'm saying. I think that right now with all the things we're talking about, things could get tougher. And if they get tougher, this is the time to double down on yourself. And if you're not willing to do that, know that, and don't do it, but then be prepared for other consequences.
You reap what you sow.
Yeah. There's probably a Texas saying for that too. What is it? Like,
I think that is it.
Rattlesnake in the boot or something.
Yep.
And then Peter and I won't question it, because if you say it the way you say it, Trey, will be like, yep.
I'm just gonna run with it. Run with
It's
it.
a Texas thing. It's got to be true. It's got to be.
Right.
It's true. That's
Snake's
definitely
ass
what
close to
they're
the
doing.
ground.
What'd you say, Trey? Say it again.
Is the snake's ass close to the ground?
Exactly.
Let's move on.
Exactly. Let's move on. We beat that one. Beat that one like a dead horse.
All right. So I think we can kind of wrap this. I think in summary,
That's everything.
I
You
mean,
said,
look,
like, buckle down. You had a whole bunch of stuff, man.
well, look, because I had a lot of random stuff. It's just I was
Okay.
trying to give a very glimpse of like the things that are going on, and I just think it's time to be paranoid. And I don't mean paranoid in a tin hat way. I mean paranoid about, oh shit, what could happen next? Because I think
Lean and mean. It's time to get lean and mean.
Yeah, or paranoid. I like paranoid.
Whichever way you want to
I
describe
think a
it.
healthy dose of paranoia. I mean,
Look, healthy. Thank
paranoia
you,
is
Craig.
what
A
got us-
healthy
got us
dose of
here.
paranoia is almost the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like what.
What's
Trey,
your job as a
I
business owner
attribute-
to like think about what could happen? I mean,
Right, that's what I was going.
you shouldn't obsess about what could happen, because a meteor could hit your fucking building
Do
and
you
you're done
guys
anyway.
look?
But
The
just
three
be
of us
aware.
were in business. The three of us were in business during the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, right, of 2008. Right, we were in business before that and business after that. Have you guys ever gone back and looked at historically what happened during that time period to your revenues, your dip? And that was pretty, look, for those of us who went through that time period, that was people were broke and killing themselves. And like, there was a lot of beat upness in the streets, right? There was just financial ruin.
Yeah.
Financial ruin everywhere. Right. Have you guys ever looked back and saw where you were? Maybe let's call it 2007 to 2000. You have?
Yeah.
How far? Where were you off, Craig?
No, so I've told you this before. We grew. We grew those years.
Didn't you just grow a building though?
Yeah, no. I didn't. So I took over my dad's practice in 2008.
Okay.
So, and I immediately went on like an expansion journey and hired doctors. So it was like in a growth curve.
Okay.
And then I merged I bought someone's records and merged into my practice during that time.
Okay.
So I was just stepping on the gas. So it was hard to say. And then there was probably people that started up in that era. I think it's just the mature.
You're not the best data point, because look,
Because I was in a growth cycle.
Yeah, and there's too many variables going on there, right? Like you took over your dad's practice, who it was probably being throttled back also at that point,
sure,
right? And so you kind of unleashed that. So that's not a very
lucky. I got really lucky. Is what
no,
it
you didn't
was.
get lucky. It's just not a very good example of something that from a consistency data point is what I'm trying to get to. Trey, do you have that information?
I do.
Do you know?
So we didn't drop, we grew.
Your mic is very low,
Your
Trey.
mic-
Thank
your
you.
You said basically we didn't drop, we grew.
We didn't drop. So from 2000 to 2008, it was a growth curve. For more or less a lot of the same reasons that Craig just said. I step in, you're poised for growth, you're running, and granted our model is based on something very different than what y'all's is. So,
all right. Well, guess what? This example falls flat on its face.
Well, no,
Because
I think it's important for
let
everybody
me
to hear.
tell you mine.
Let's say what happened, because also too, listen, Trey has a model that's not as elective, right?
This is true.
Right.
Okay.
So he is not as susceptible to the discretionary. He's got breaking teeth showing up every day. At that time, your model, Peter, and I know this,
Yes.
was very cosmetic, high-end
Very-
cosmetic.
Fee for service, very cosmetic. You are
Right.
absolutely right. I was concentrated in one genre of dentistry, right? Which actually, I think I've told everyone from then, I realized the pain from that made me branch off into kind of trifurcate into surgical, restorative, and cosmetic. That being said, I do have data from 2007 to 2000. Let's just call it 9 at the from peak to trough, if you will, right from the lowest we went down, and so we lost about 22%
Of your top line revenue.
of a top line revenue between,
Okay.
right? So it was a 20% fall. So here's where I'm going with this, guys. In these times of uncertainty, I always use that as a reference because I don't think I don't think they'll get worse than that, or if worse, I don't think much worse. So ask yourself, if you're listening to this, if you had a 20% haircut on your revenues, what would that do? Right? Would it be catastrophic to your ecosystem? Would you be able to be okay for a year or two with that? What would have to happen? Right? So Trey, back to your point, the contingencies. Would you have to fire someone based on the revenues per employee, per revenue, some metrics? Would you have to, what would you do? And that's what I'm saying.
Another thing is looking at your model as well. If you knew that discretionary income would go down, maybe you have a model where there's no hygiene right now and you just take off like all on X cases, and you don't really, and you just spend money on those types of procuring those patients. Would you want a hygiene program if the economic cycle cooled, or would you want more of a quadrant based business?
Want to amplify that. Personally, I would think
I'm just saying that
careful of all on X cases in a economic crisis. You do want to stay away from all on X.
Right. What I'm just saying that there's certain models that were built.
Can you agree, Trey?
I would agree, but so to further what the point Craig's making, though, is I think an all on X model, and I'll use, you have companies that pop up to reap the benefits of the time. Look at,
Right.
ERC, PPP, all these. You have companies that pop up that will be there to help you along the line. They'll take their cut and they disappear.
Right.
An all on X model that is strictly all on X is exactly that.
Okay. That's
Because
what I
they
was
can't
thinking,
weather the storm on the bottom end. But if you call it a pyramid, build the base. If you have a
Right.
big hygiene program, frankly, you'll do more all on X anyway, because you're pulling elective services out of your base. And then when the elective services go away because the economy may dip or discretionary spending gets pulled back for whatever reason, that space is still there. So you can poise and get ready for the next.
Well, you're building a business on a very broad, solid foundation. I love
Correct.
the physical analogy. One of my big errors in the way I built my business was specialty focused. So I built the top of the pyramid without the bottom of the pyramid. My biggest concern, if you had asked me 7-8 years ago, what do you want to do? I want to get my full-time oral surgeon as busy as possible. Like, duh. Like, what does that do? First of all, the rates that you pay the oral surgeon are so much higher than what the general dentist would get. You're not even making good unit economics off that doctor production. Whereas if you've built and I think this is coming to another more clear point, whatever happens, if the economy cools, it will be like the tide receding. We'll get to see what everybody's made of. If your business is good, we get to see a lot of people that have had major flex and had huge years. Do they really have what it takes? Or would they just ride in the top of a wave that now receded? So that's what
that brings up, what's the saying? It's when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked.
Yeah, who's swimming naked. Yeah.
Something like that.
You know what's funny though about 2008? I remember thinking this as someone who had no money. I remember thinking like presenting treatment and people saying yes, and me thinking like, how the hell? Like some people just were not affected.
Yeah, there will be locations that are not affected, by the way.
Some people just have money.
But there's always locations that are not affected. And that's one of the things you got to learn. One of the things you
now than ever
to
before
learn is, Pete, you dropped 22% at any given time. You're 15 years later, but what'd you learn from that drop?
Yeah.
And how did you apply that off of a 15-year run to get where you are now? And Craig, you started with specialty. I'm going to get my oral surgeon busy. But how did you learn that didn't pan out and now you've pivoted and you've built the model now? You start looking into that world and say, hey, what I learned from that, and then how do I make those adjustments to make my model better?
You're saying the blessings that happen because of
always
that.
a blessing. As long as you weather the storm, there is always, and I say that I'm making a big assumption that you are in fact both, you can reflect and you are in fact self-aware.
What do you guys think about?
Huge assumption, by the way.
That
But
is
for
a
those
huge
that are for those people that are listening to this right now and they're about to embark on the all on X model or the specialty driven model, at least it goes in their ear because no one ever freaking told me that. And I had to get my ass kicked. So there's a way to be like, okay, my oral surgeon wants to be paid blank, double-digit percent, this percentage over what a GP would. And I'm going to really allocate this many resources to it. And there is a commoditization of patients. Like if you are lucky enough to have a great business that attracts someone to phone it and show up, if you only sell one thing to that patient, that's a problem versus we can do these 5 or 10 things. It's like having a store that only sells one thing. If you're an all on X model, you only sell oil changes. It's like, wouldn't it be nice to have the auto shop that your brakes are also looking a little bad here? We can do your oil and your brakes and the oil is probably not a great analogy, but it's just saying that the more trained you are, the more providers you have that do varied services, the more preventative services, your dental business is more resilient. And I think that the times have allowed people to say, I don't need a dental resilient business. We're getting 30 arches a week. I don't need that shit.
Yeah, it's dangerous. That's a good point.
That's all I got. I just think
that's the reason why Saber rattled and said like, hey, really have that self-awareness and really know what you're heading into. Because if you're getting your ass kicked over the last couple of years, beyond the labor crisis and the COVID and all that, if your business has holes in it, take inventory and step on the gas now. If you're that person, invest in yourself.
Or you're saying plug those holes first, right? Right. And that's what I think what we mean when we kind of flippantly say be lean and mean. It's spend some time, dig under the hood, look for holes, plug them, fix some systems that are broken, that have been sloppy, but you've ignored them because we've been in a bull market where there's been abundant people signing up for treatment. Now's the time to kind of, reassess.
Also, there's a halo effect too. One last point about culture. I want to bring it to culture for 1 second. There's a halo effect when there's uncertain times and you as a leader get to be that bright beacon for what you stand for and reminding people that you're doing good. Listen, we're all in the dental business and we get to help people. We get paid to help people, and dentistry is a noble profession and we get to take people out of pain. And when the shit gets real and it gets bad, or if it does get bad, you can remind your team of that on a daily basis. Like today we're going in with uncertain times, but people coming in and needing to have care delivered, and we get the privilege and the blessing to deliver that care. And so the point I'm trying to make is that when you have uncertain times, you have an opportunity for your leadership to shine brighter than it would when there's positivity all around. It's easy to hold the helm in a calm sea. It's tougher during a storm, and you'll be looked at favorably. I know that was the case for me in COVID. My leadership was probably the same, but I felt, and it was so much more impactful because people were looking to me for guidance on this uncertain time, and I was there for them. And that's it can create a halo effect. So there is going to be silver lining through it if it does come to pass. Or worst case scenario, we're talking a bunch of shit, and history will prove this podcast either correct or wrong. But my feeling is this is another nail in the coffin for pain at the cash register for us that we have yet to feel.
So sum it all up. You can name the podcast this: Get Your Shit Done.
Get your shit done. Yeah. Get her done. As
GSD. That's the phrase in my office. GSD. Get shit done.
Yeah. That's one of our values. That's perfect.
That's a plaque on your wall.
It is. No, our values spell fight. It's an acronym. And G is get shit done.
I love that.
That is awesome.
Truth. It's the truth. Anything else, guys? We'll wrap this one. And I want to end on a positive somehow.
Yeah,
I felt like I may have started it with just facts that were kind of doom and gloom and maybe
We're all gonna die.
They're facts. I mean, how you feel about them is the
clickbait.
fact.
It wasn't so much clickbaity, but I was like trying to draw a lot of kind of like confluent factors into like, oh look, we got GPT-4 launching, we got Bitcoin growing, we got banks crashing, we got wars
No,
going
and
on.
it's all relevant information, though. I mean, it's all those things are happening. That's current
It is
events
true.
right now.
It's truth. It's not like
But
you were exaggerating it.
it's
It's truth.
Pete, you asking both of us how did 2007 to 2008 go, and you realize that the answer in both of these cases was we grew,
Mm,
is testament that
100.
we are exactly what Craig said. We are a business that is in healthcare. We have the privilege and the honor of being able to help people, and our success means people get healthy. And if you always sit back and relish in that, and you always take advantage of the fact that very few people can say that,
Right.
then go do what you know to do best, which is take care of people. You will always triumph.
And getting the chance to remind your team that's what they're doing today, because the law of familiarity, they just tend to take it for granted or forget. You know, I remember the first time I ever touched a patient in clinic, I was like, oh my God, one day I'll be paid to do this, you know, and then you forget, freaking, I got to do this 15.
I think we
MO,
also, this is the last thing I'll say, and we can wrap it if you guys want, but I think we also underestimate our ability to change direction. This isn't a freedom of direction thing, Craig. We underestimate the changes that we at usually the top of the food pyramid in our organizations can change, right? You can look at, for instance, looking at your credit card statements and saying like, do we really need this? Is this moving the needle, right? This is what I mean by lean and mean, right? Do we need 7 employees here or could we do with 5? Do we need all these, right? Do we need all these SaaS services? Do we need all these fees? Having someone looking at every expense that's coming in, right? Or money that's going out rather, and all the money that's coming in, and be very diligent about that. And what we track increases, and it increases in our favor, right? So if you start getting real shrewd about, do we love this? Do we need this service? And getting real lean and mean in your P&L, and then being real directive with your marketing and actually bringing revenues in. I think this is what we mean by lean and mean. It's not just a saying that says like, just do it, right?
Yeah, well, just be aware of it. I mean,
that is
during the worst times of my practice,
lean and mean, and we think, what does that mean, right? And everyone kind of gets the idea, but where's the rubber meet the road when someone says get lean and mean with your dental practice? And when I hear that to myself, that's what it means to me. It may need something completely different to you guys, but maybe not.
Also, too, I just think that looking at, like, we always talk about Pearson's law, that which gets measured and reported tends to improve. Like the sheer act of having a scale in your bathroom will have you lose weight just because you're measuring it.
You say that a lot. I think that's fake news, Craig.
Yeah, no,
I have a scale in my bathroom. I'm still waiting.
He hasn't done shit from.
Well, you also said fat and happy, so you have an overt, intention to stay, fat and happy.
That's right. That's a good point.
So, but I do think that many of us, and I was talking to somebody just a little while ago, and they literally don't have, you ask a lot of these dental business owners, what is your percentage for overhead, what is your percentage for your staff, your salary, your team salaries? They have no idea. What do you spend on advertising? No idea. What do you produce? No idea. So like, it's not just lean and mean, just means that know your numbers.
Yeah,
if you don't know your numbers, you don't own a business. You have to know your numbers, and you have to be obsessed in KPIs for everything. Like what percentage of people, and on Tuesdays people accept fluoride more. That's bullshit. That's like metric dysphoria. But at least know your numbers. Largest number of all of our practices across the board outside of taxes, because we all know that's the largest single expense, is our team. So the unit, like how much per employee. Another way of saying that, just to kind of circle back to that point, is just what's your percentage? I don't care if it's 10 or 8 that do it, as long as it's sub 27% or 25%, I'm happy. And I would always tell somebody in my office before I hired them, somebody else, I'm like, do you need help, or would you rather have a raise? Or could you do this job? Because we all have experiences where we lost an employee and never actually backfilled that person.
Right.
I had one that you wanted me to fire a long time, let her remain nameless. But like, we took her $90,000 salary. And Erica said, we'll spend I think we should spend 60 of it amongst this team and they can all do it. She wound up spending 40 of it. And everybody's super happy. They're all getting more money, and we didn't need to fill that other position.
Right. And you just got bloated, right? That's what I was
We
saying.
all do. Look at what Silicon Valley, the same thing with
Mhm.
Twitter. When you have profit margins that are astronomical,
You don't know what to do.
need-
Hire more.
you
more.
need 300 cappuccino machines and an avocado toast maker and whatever else. And listen, Silicon Valley is the reason why we had to get crying pods or whatever places, safe spaces or whatever they have at Google. But then the dental office is like, okay, we need a crying pod too, because Mrs. Jones could be kind of mean. And then Silicon Valley falls apart. And now we're sitting here like, what do we do with our crying pod in our massage room?
Right.
But it's these forces that, put pressure on us. It trickles all the way down, like how to have your employees feel loved. I mean, listen, I think it's great, but that was born in Silicon Valley. That was born of 7,000% profit margins. We don't have that. We don't have the ability to like Facebook to print money at that magnitude. But employees hey, look what they're doing at Facebook.
That kind of, we've touched on culture in the past on a lot of different ways, but I just wrote something out that I have not actually disseminated throughout my organization. But one of the things I mentioned is culture is not your crying pod. Culture is not your nap pad. It's not your bonuses. It's not any of the events that we do in the happy hours and all that. Culture is saying hello in the morning. Culture is your, hey, how are you? It's good to see you. Ask about your kids. It's these small little interactions between people. And that's what creates the fabric of your culture. All the other stuff may further and bolster that fabric, but the fabric is built there. The fabric is something that you don't actually have to spend money on. Spending money protects the culture. Spending money gives opportunity to
highlight the culture.
Thrive. It highlights it.
Yeah.
But you can build those things, and those are the important things. The rest are gimmicks, and sometimes gimmicks work. They help those things. But
they work for social media. The gimmick works. The donut picture works for marketing messages a little bit, but when the patient shows up, they smell it that your culture sucks. Like you always can feel a culture is a vibe. When you walk into business,
it's definitely a vibe.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a restaurant last night and the waitresses were all awesome and they all worked there forever. And there's a great vibe there and the service was amazing and everything was great, but it's like the same thing. That's the reason why corporate has such a hard time. It's hard to corporatize culture. You can't fake it. It's hard to fake. But I mean, doubling down on culture too is huge. And as a person who provided free lunches for 4 years, I can tell you that does not work. It actually makes people upset.
Yeah. Heaven forbid to get the same thing 2 days in a row, Craig.
Exactly. There's one more thing I want to talk about. You guys might want to veto this. So I'm going to bring it up and feel free to shut it down. I know you won't. You won't care. You did?
No.
Okay, so the other thing is, we talk about the recession and cooling economics and how local affects. Like, it's crazy when we think about, I never cared or thought about conducting business in one geography versus another outside of the demographics. If you have money and it's a good community, yeah, open up a dental practice there. But now we have the variable of how difficult and challenging it is to practice and be a business in certain states versus others.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I have friends of mine.
You're just going to throw shade on California and New York.
No, I'm not. I have many friends that say they will no longer do business in blank. I tried to do a dealership in Massachusetts was the last example. And it was so abusive and so difficult. They're like, we're not opening up any more companies there. Kevin O'Leary said the same thing.
Yeah, he want to invest in companies in California.
Right. So it's like, doesn't that trickle in as well? Doesn't that go into a decision? Let's say you're listening right now and you wanted to open in such and such a state. Does that start to enter into the young dental student's mind that wants to open up a dental practice or the person wants to break out on their own? Does that go in there as well?
Yeah.
It should. Yeah. It should.
Absolutely. If unless you
there
love,
there are a set of rules by which we live. Some are dictated by us and some are dictated by society and some are laws. But you got to play within the rules. And if you want to go and open up multiple practices and have big machines in North Carolina, it's a hell of a lot harder to do that than Florida, Texas, or Georgia.
Right.
So you got to see where you're going, and it should 100% factor into the decisions that you're making.
Yeah. I just thought that was an
You
interesting
know,
thing.
that's a shame. You know, that's a shame that it is that way, though, Craig. Right? It
Well, I
shouldn't.
never thought it was like that. I never even knew who my governor was. I never cared about the governor. I never cared about different states. COVID started to highlight it. Like when we were talking to our mastermind, it's like, wait, what do you have to do over there? What's going on? I'm like, we don't have to do that.
But
Like
it's,
that's
you know, it's like shit. It's hard enough, like without government intervention or regulation and stuff like that. It's hard enough running a business and doing things and managing employees and doing dentistry and making people happy, right? And now to get just hogtied with regulations and massive taxes and just these burdens, it's like,
Right.
golly, uncle, right? Like uncle.
yeah.
And so it's just
What?
it,
Yeah,
it
with the
sucks that we're
tax
even having to have
treatment.
that conversation of like, oh, you know what? Everyone should move to Florida or Texas, kind of thing. But like,
Oh.
maybe that I don't know.
You know, speaking of, by the way, I just heard this. We have the lowest state tax, no state tax, lowest tax rate, and the highest surplus of any state. We have more jobs in Florida that are available today than before COVID. More, you know, it's crazy.
So
The
when
same-
you're flying in to figure out from California where we want to move, fly right over Texas and keep
Just go-
going to Florida.
Go right to that
Yeah.
peninsula.
They have jobs. They got a ton of jobs for you. They're ready
Yeah.
for
Got
you.
jobs and a ton of
Yeah.
money.
It's so funny though. I always ask people when they move here, why'd you move here? I like the weather. I'm like, what do you think about our politics? Like, oh, we hate it. I just think it's so funny. Everybody says the same thing. Why'd you move from New York? You know, the weather. I'm like, well,
The
anything else?
weather.
I'm like, what do you think of Florida's
God.
politics? Oh,
Only a
God,
good
we
6
hate
months a year.
Then you
Yeah.
need to go buy them a yard sign.
it. I don't know. What am I going to do? Listen, it's. I think when you get into the real world, you start to feel the difference between different places. But I just think it's interesting that factor that never would have gone into my mind. I was actually considering staying in Massachusetts, just because I liked it. I
Yeah.
never, I liked it when I
After
went to
school, you
there.
mean?
Yeah, after school, I
Yeah,
went to.
I
went to
considered
Tufts.
it. I considered staying in my town too, in Lexington, Kentucky. I remember applying and being like, "What am I doing? I'm not from here. This isn't my
Right,
land."
but that was the limit to my decision was where do I want to live? It never entered into my mind. It is difficult to do business in such and such a state.
Yeah, yeah,
It didn't exist when we went to school. 20 years
Very good
ago,
point.
it didn't exist. It was
Yeah,
no
will
different.
it be harder here than it is here?
Right.
That didn't factor
Like
in, right?
never factored in.
Hmm.
Like you go to like a CVS in San Francisco, it does not look at all like the CVS in Georgia or rural Georgia. Like the CVS in San Francisco, everything is under lock and key.
Correct.
Like same store, same city. Like that never happened. It's just everything's different in different states. It's a very interesting perspective. By the way, that's just my thought. I'd love to hear anybody comment below and let me know if they're thinking that or if I'm just becoming the crotchety old man. And
No,
I'm
you just have
completely
confirmation bias because
well,
you live
yeah,
in Florida.
exactly. And I just need someone to tell me, like, no, you're way off base, or no, we do feel it that way. I do follow a guy on Instagram. He's SF Dental Nerd. I think his name is Wally Waz. Yeah, but he's always posting. Like he practices there. He's like, look, here's what's happening. There's this going on my street right now. And it's like,
really?
oh damn, like he shows like here's CVS or here's like the bum outside my place, or or this is the encampment.
He does a lot of content. I've seen his stuff too. He's awesome. I think we met him at DIA, Craig, because he's part of the DIA.
No, you know what? He's also speaking at Seattle Study Club with us as well. No, AACD. Sorry, AACD. Yeah,
got it. Yeah, I was gonna say that's just you rolling to Seattle Study Club.
Yeah, did you hear that story, Trey? This is so good.
I haven't heard this one.
So AACD.
You don't bring Boulden.
Yeah, here, get one of your sound effects ready, Peter, because it's going to be a good one. So, no, not that one, one. So AACD calls me and says, yeah, exactly. I'll tell you when. I'll give you the finger. So AACD calls me and says, we want you to speak. I'm like, I don't speak without Boulden. And they say, okay, no problem. And so Boulden and I are speaking at Seattle Study Club the 27th of April. Seattle Study Club calls me and says the same thing. I'm like,
AACD, you're getting your stories confused. You said that about, so I got to ride your coattails on AACD is what you're basically saying. And then
Seattle Study Club says, hey, do you want to speak? I'm like, I don't speak without Boulden. Like, no, we're not having Boulden. So I'm like, I don't want to do it. And Boulden's like, no, do it. It's important. And now cue the
you know what? We're gonna end on You know what? For all the times I said you ride my coattails, I'm gonna let you have that and just shut up and just let it be.
No, I
Let
like
it
it.
be.
Bud.
It's
I
okay.
like it. I like it.
It's okay, bud. You know
Hey,
what?
we have a big follower on the
Tony Robbins and
Bulletproof
Dennis.
Dental Practice Instagram.
What?
TR himself is following our Instagram now and gave
Who's
us a
that?
nice shout out on Tony Robbins on
Oh,
International Dentist Day or National Dentist Day. They gave us a big
yeah.
shout out.
Do you know what happened, Trey? They reposted Craig and Tony's wife, Sage. They reposted that episode on his channel from the Bulletproof Network. So it got.
And you know what changed because of that? Nothing.
I called Craig.
Yeah, Pete's like, how does it feel? I mean, did everything change? I'm like, what changes?
And he almost answered a little bit bitter. He's like, no.
Well, why would it change?
Why would shower that day was
like, I can't believe
a little bit nicer.
No one even said anything. I can't even believe this.
No, I didn't. I don't care. But I wouldn't have expected anything to change. It is cool and it's an endorsement because I know it's the type of
something to be proud of. You bet.
Yeah, I mean, but it's
sure.
also just you know, you don't really. It's the culmination of a relationship of a lot of service back and forth, and it's not like there's no one. I think what I'm trying to say is there's no one move that'll make you successful, and no one failure that'll tear it all apart. It's a series of successes that build and make you successful, and oh god, look what he has with this. It's a series of failures that make you fail. It's not one big failure. So for those of you who are not watching right now, Peter, as his own little insecure flex that he does, he under his name on the video right now, he's put founder and left nothing under my name or Trey's name. Just to always put me in my place.
No.
We all need Peter Boulden.
It's a software glitch, honestly, Craig. I don't know why it does.
Keeps happening.
It just
keeps happening. It's real weird.
Oh my god, I love it. Well, buddy, I can't wait to be the weak link in all of your speeches coming up, and
I can't wait either.
It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm excited for you, Pete.
Speaking of weak links,
speaking
of weak links, what happened to Dwight today? Where's he at?
Craig.
Is he gonna make it? All right, guys.
This may be one of the last final times because Craig is working on a Trey. I don't know if you've ever heard, but Craig is a very good rapper. He can.
I've heard. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're doing a good.
He is working on the new outro and intro. We've been a little bit frenetic with trying things out here and there. Intro this, intro that. So this may be one of the last times you hear this outro.
There's a lot of pressure on you, bro.
Good.
It's okay. Hey. It'll be okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Hey, I already heard kind of the first draft and I loved it. So it's gonna be cool.
Are you orchestrating? I mean, are you the performer?
I'm not the performer. Well, no, we are the performer.
Yeah,
actually.
kind of little snippets.
I don't want to give it away, but it's pretty cool, man.
I'm excited.
I like it. Yeah,
I'm excited.
Very excited. Well, guys, it was awesome seeing you. Thanks for listening. If you liked it, we added Eddie value. Share this with a friend. Like, comment. Tell us how much you love Trey. Because
review. We need some reviews, by the way. Everyone always forgets to review, just like we forget to ask our dental patients to review.
I like that Texan guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's all right. If you got 30 seconds, we'd appreciate a review just to keep the oxygen going in the room. And don't forget, Summit's coming up. Craig, we don't promote very Summit's coming up. Bulletproof Summit. We've got the landing page is expanding with all the stuff that's happening. August. They'll win in August, Las Vegas.
Yep.
Check it out.
And if you're at ACD, come say hi. We'd love to see you.
Yes, totally. And if you're at Seattle Study Club, say hi to Craig.